Hi everyone, we are the Watermelon Men group. I'm Nina.
I'm Caden.
I'm Casey.
I'm Alicia.
And I'm Izzy.
So our podcast group is actually going to be talking about the reading of Chalmers Reality Plus, and we're going to kind of discuss the three questions from the reading: the knowledge question, the reality question, the value question, taking into his opinions against other philosophers, and then inputting own opinions.
Starting with the first question. Chalmers claims there are multiple realities. Do you agree? Why or why not?
So I'm actually kind of in between. I don't necessarily agree, nor do I disagree. The way I see multiple realities, just in my personal opinion, is like kind of this life and then in the afterlife. I know a lot of people tend to be spiritual or religious, and so we technically only believe in two realities, and that's when we're alive, and that's when we pass on to the, I guess, what they call the next life or the next reality. What do you guys think?
I think there are multiple realities, but I only think there's two, the living and the virtual reality. And our living reality is everything outside of simulations and our dreams, basically.
Yeah, bouncing off what Nina and Caden said, to be honest, I think I would personally have to agree with Chalmers' claims here, because I think in our everyday life, there's multiple realities that we set ourselves into. Like when you're playing a video game, you set yourself within that reality by following its rules and following the confines of that environment. But I also see the spiritual side that Nina was talking about, how there's the living reality, and then there's the reality where your essence or soul, or the afterlife, basically. So honestly, I personally agree with Chalmers' statement.
Yeah, I'm going to have to follow. I would say that overall I would probably agree, because I just think our world is so infinite and we don't really know everything. So I'm not really closed off to the thought of the existence of multiple realities. I mean, I have my doubts, but I think because we know so little, I wouldn't really dismiss the idea of realities.
Yeah, I too wouldn't be like completely closed off to the idea. I wouldn't say I necessarily do or don't believe it. It's definitely an interesting idea, and I would like to believe it. And I would like to think that in a different reality, I'm living in a life. Continuing on with the next question. Are simulations illusions?
That's actually a good question. I kind of think, in a sense, they might be. These simulations, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have seen like movies or TV shows where people have been put, I don't know, like on machines, and they're actually put into a simulation. And it's an illusion. The way I see it is, it might be an illusion because it's not the reality that your other self was really living in, rather than it's just something that you're being hooked to. I think also, like what Casey said with the last question, when it comes to video games, it's a simulation, but it's technically an illusion. I mean, there's really no such thing as flying cars at the moment, and a lot of games have that, so that's kind of an illusion in my opinion. Especially like in films, when they have these kinds of sort of like different simulations, this all can be kind of an illusion. And I think that there really is a difference between the two.
I'm gonna slightly disagree. I think that simulations are just experiences of separate reality. Like how I said earlier, there's the living and the virtual reality. A simulation is just your experience of the virtual reality, but it really depends on like the value you and the sanctity you hold of the living reality. Because in the case of Nerida's life as Sushila, it wouldn't really it would count as a virtual reality, despite the fact that it's not actually happening. It's still happening in their mind, and so that experience counts as reality enough, I believe.
And honestly, I actually really like how you worded that, Kanan. And just to build off of that, I think I would have to disagree too. I think simulations are. I honestly, the way Chalmers worded it within his word piece, I kind of see it as like a branch. So there's the reality that I'm in right now, recording this podcast and speaking on this topic. And then whenever I get hooked up to the game or whatever, I feel like I branch off into another reality that is real within that branch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I personally would say I don't think simulations are illusions, because I entertain the idea that it could be, there's like multiple universes, I guess. So it could be projecting what life is like somewhere else in a different universe if we're going against with like the multiple realities, if that's what we're sticking with or whatever, whether it be like the virtual or whatever. So I just think it could be just any person kind of doing their day-to-day type thing and different possibilities.
Yeah, I think the word illusion makes you feel like you're being tricked. So with that, I think as long as you remember that it is a simulation, it wouldn't be an illusion to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for that based on that, Izzy. So if you didn't know that you were an illusion, or if you didn't know you were in the simulation, is that considered an illusion then?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like I'm the only one that actually thought simulations were illusions. But, I mean, all right. So I actually have a question for you guys, and this is kind of based on excuse my language if I don't say it right, the Zhuangxi's butterfly dream. How do any of us know we aren't dreaming in a virtual reality right now? To be honest with you, I honestly don't think we do know. I mean, I guess a lot of people think that we can differentiate between not dreaming and dreaming. And a lot of us, I mean, it's just kind of comes down to simple terms, like when you get ready for bed, you're going to end up dreaming, whereas opposed to, when you're up and awake and we're in class, that really kind of sets the boundary of us actually knowing if we're dreaming or not. What do you guys think?
I had a more literal take on Zhuangxi's butterfly dream. I thought, because he's pondering if in his dream, excuse me, he was if he was the butterfly or he's actually the human that he believed himself to be. Knowing that our brain is the most complicated machine in the world and that it needs its size, I don't think that it's possible for us to be anything other than human and anything other than us being in our reality, if that makes sense.
Well, me personally, I think I like what Nina said about how I think we don't know we're in a virtual reality or if we're dreaming or not. But all I know is if I'm in a simulation or virtual reality, it might be the most boring one out there. But that's just me. And
yeah, I would say that I am not quite sure if there's a way to tell each virtual reality can really differ, and the way we are existing in each one can be completely different. If I was like trying a possible way to tell, going off of the dreaming thing, not the reality, but I say like if I saw someone in my dream that takes place in absolutely the present time that I know is like definitely dead, I don't know how to tell. I guess then I would know that I'm not dreaming, but I don't know how to tell if we're not in a virtual reality right now. It would be kind of terrifying if we were, though, if you think about it.
Yeah. I said sensory experience is more vivid and detailed when you're awake than when you're dreaming. So like the pinch test may be a version of this. And you can also feel your feet on the floor. The visual experience is not comparable to when you're sleeping.
If I'm going to add on to that, there's what I was trying to say earlier is there's a level of detail and cognition that we're able to perceive in waking reality rather than dreaming. If you're dreaming and you're in a room with a light, you're not going to actually notice like glares off of shiny things or anything. Your brain can't produce that level of detail, rather than when you're awake and in the living reality, you're able to perceive all the little minute details of the world around you.
I agree with that. That's actually quite true, because the thing is like when you're in a dream, there are a lot of things that you actually don't know. And the best part about dreaming is that even the best scientists of our world haven't really discovered where dreaming comes from. And so when you're actually in a dream, you don't really know what you're doing necessarily. Sometimes you do, but when you see like imminent objects, you don't know, like you can't even recognize if something is shining and reflecting. Whereas in reality, you would notice like, hey, for instance, that light is shining off a glass. Like I can see that, I can understand that, I can visualize it even better than I am in a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mm.
Going to another question I have. How do we know anything we experience is actually real? Personally, I think it's really hard to say because Chalmer brings up something like a chair, if I remember correctly, and how basically the technology to create that chair in a virtual reality is technically speaking real, which therefore makes the virtual chair real as well, which was interesting to me because I never would have thought that far. The only way I would be able to tell if something is real in my instance would be based off my feelings, because someone can claim that whatever we're experiencing, like our emotions, or say like a book or something, you can experience sadness, anger, and someone can tell you those feelings aren't really real because it's fiction, and so obviously not real. But I believe if we feel those feelings, then in some capacity, it is real to each individual. What are your thoughts?
Well, with the question of how do we know anything we experience is real, I actually like don't know. This is what's so really nice about this class is it really does get you thinking about these things. I honestly don't. I don't know. My brain is very like literal. It's very like when it comes to certain things like this, it can be really. I can be really closed-minded and just think, well, I can see it, right? I can touch it. I can feel it. It's like, how do you know if the human next to you is real? Well, I can hug her. I can touch her. I can go out on I can go to the mall with her. I can be a human with this other person. But then there's the contradicting point where it's like, but wait, I can do all that in a dream. And that's a different form of reality. That's not this form of reality. So it's like, to me, it really gets me thinking as to like, well, do I really know all this is real? And that kind of just bounces back to the point of like the actual simulations. Because what if like, I know a lot of people think this, like actually think this. I don't, but some people tend to believe that we're actually under some, it could be a higher being. I mean, some people think it's God. Some people think it's literally somebody controlling us through some form of simulation on a remote control. But some people think that this is their version of reality. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a solid point on it. I'm a little iffy on it. What do you guys think?
I tend to agree. There's no exact way to know. It really depends on your level of skepticism and how much you're willing to accept as real. If you wake up and you hear birds chirping in the morning and you smell rain because it rained last night, you can tell that that's real, but it depends on how much you want to actually believe that what you're perceiving is real.
Yeah, honestly, to answer this question simply, I'm gonna just say what you guys said. Like, I do not know. I don't know if anything we experience is real, but I think this question really puts the ball in our court. Because if you really think about this question, like if someone were to ask me this question, I would say, because I want it to be real, because I chose for it to be real, type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's, if someone were to say like, well, how do you know if this desk that I'm sitting by is real? Because I want it to be real. I think like the way this question is posed really makes this like gets my cogs turning about how like how I perceive and how like can't really put my tongue on it, but how I get quote unquote powerful we are if we can. Because this question makes me think like, oh, in actuality, I can kind of create my own reality if whether I choose to believe something is real or not.
Yeah. I think anything that you experience is real to you. So like all of your experiences always feel real. Whether or not it's like in a virtual reality is like entirely inconsequential.
hmm And then moving on to Chalmers' other ideas with narrative's transformation, do you think that virtual realities are genuine realities? And is Narita's life as Sushila real or an illusion?
I think virtual realities, I don't really know. I mean, I think virtual realities can be genuine realities. I know, like, I compare it a lot. When I hear virtual, I tend to really think about technology, which is like that closed-minded person that I talked about myself a little bit about. And if I'm going to compare it to, like, when I say virtual and I say technology, I'm going to compare virtual to, like, a computer game or, like, a video game. But a lot of the time, this is why I think it might be a genuine reality. Virtual realities can be real because, like, in a certain game, it could be real life. We have characters that look like us. We have certain, I don't know, I guess, weapons or cars that we've already invented in this simulation or in this life, in this reality. And so I think that they actually could be genuine realities. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily solid proof, but I mean, I tend to think that it could be a genuine reality. With Narada's life as Sushila being real or is it illusion? I think it might have been an illusion, but I don't know because a lot of the time in their I guess in like virtual realities and stuff, it honestly could just be our subconscious developing all of this and just pushing it towards our conscious point of our brain, and we actually tend to think it's real. What do you guys think?
I agree with your first point. I do think that virtual realities are genuine realities, just because that experience is real. Like with Narita's life as Sushila, they were able to experience the tragedy and like the hardships of that life, therefore making that experience real. And if nothing else, being real in the experience should be what guides you as to what you believe to be real or not. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
I
going
do.
off the.
Oh, go ahead, Casey.
No, no, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do get the fact, like when you said like they experienced like the hardship and stuff. Don't you think you could experience and have like actual true feelings in like I don't know, a different kind of reality, like your dream? And that's not necessarily, I guess, proven to be actually real. So wouldn't that kind of give you the sense of the illusion?
That does call back to what I was saying earlier with there being multiple realities, the living and the virtual reality. I classified living as everything that basically when you're awake, and virtual counts as both like simulations, like how the Matrix works, as well as your dreams. So I think it does count as like a real experience and not an illusion.
Okay, all right, that's a good point. Casey, go ahead.
I mean, when Narada's life as Sushila, when they experienced that, I think Narada chose for it to be real. So I think that in and of itself, and like her going through all the things, or it going through all the things, or whatever, I think that is what at the end of the day made it real. But to answer the first part of the question, if I think virtual realities are genuine realities, I think this just circles me back to what I mentioned earlier about being in the confines of certain rules within another reality. So like this kind of goes down a more anthropology approach, because like in some video games, like I don't know, like World of Warcraft, there's other people that you're interacting with, there's other characters that you can meet, and then there's like a working economy within the game. And if you want to go to like with a technical sense, I guess that's what can make that place a reality, just like how we have all those things within the reality we're experiencing now. So, just to wrap up my answer for the question, I think that yes, virtual realities are actual genuine realities.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with both Casey and Caden. I do believe that virtual realities are genuine realities. Because the second question is Narada's life as Sushila real or is it an illusion? I definitely thought it was real because similar to how I answered the last question, I feel like if an individual were to go through the feelings, like the visceral, raw feelings of the experience, it can become their own reality. It is their own truth, and it was like their experience, and like they said, like probably shape a person. And if that is enough to shape them, then I think that it's real enough for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that not like genuine realities, but I think that Narada, his emotions were very real, which made it real for him. And, he like lost his children, his grandchildren. So I believe that it was an illusion, but the experiences were real for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Following that, I would ask, Vishnu says that our ordinary lives are as illusory as, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, Narada's transformed life. Is our own world real or an illusion? Honestly,
Yeah,
I'm very, oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm reading it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I would just say that I honestly am quite uncertain about this. I would kind of like to hear everyone's thoughts, but I would say possibly to some capacity, our world is real to us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I really do think that this world is real. Um, and it's not, again, going back to what I had said earlier, it's not just because I can see, touch, feel, and hear. Those all contribute, but I'm not saying that we're the only real world because, like, we're we're living in one galaxy. We live in the Milky Way. What about all the other places? They're real. They're not an illusion. We could see it. We could see them. We could feel them. We could touch them, right? But that doesn't make them an illusion. But I also think that this world is real because of all the things we experience, all of our hardships and all of our like eventful lives. And I just can't say that everything we've experienced for the past like 20 to 21 years of our lives has just been an illusion. Because if it was an illusion, what what are we doing here? What are we doing in this illusion? What could possibly be waiting for us after this illusion? So I really do think that this world is real.
Yeah. I think that was really well said. My answer was much shorter. I think that the world is real just because we're experiencing it genuinely, and if nothing else, we only have our experiences to say what is real and what isn't. So, based off of that, I'd say that this world is real, that we're experiencing it genuinely.
No, yeah, honestly, Nina did a great job on explaining that, and and just to add on my 2 cents or my thoughts on it, um, I think yes, like the world that we are in right now is as real as we want it to be. I think as real as and any individual wants it to be. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that it's real, but again, we don't really have any like evidence to say otherwise. So it's kind of like I hope it's real, you know? Next question.
Um, and then just to throw in another question there, is it likely that we're in a simulation? And if so, how likely?
Um, I don't. I guess this is our form of a simulation. Like I said, I think that this world is real, but I never said that it wasn't a simulation. So I'm just going to put my personal opinion out there, and I'm not saying everybody has to agree on this, but I'm going to put a perspective in. So I'm religious, and my religion is Christianity. So I believe that if we're going to title this as a simulation, then maybe it's God's simulation. And if you're not religious, or if you don't believe in this certain aspect of religion, I mean, I still think that if this is a simulation, it belongs to a higher being. And it kind of, and again, because I'm religious, I'm going to say it's kind of funny how, a lot of the time people will say like, oh, is God controlling us on his personal remote control, or is he just giving us his own, our own free will? And my opinion would be he's giving us our own free will to do whatever we want in this life. And that's his version of his own simulation. And again, with the non-religious aspect, I still think that if this is a simulation of our real world, then I mean, I guess in my personal opinion, it really has to be run by some form of higher being. I don't think that us as these human beings living in this in our tiny little planet surrounded by this whole galaxy, I really don't think we created our own simulation. You guys want to add to that or share your own opinions?
I think it's possible but not likely that we're in a simulation. Scientific American, which is a science journal, says that there's about a 50% chance of us living in a simulation. So, I mean, I don't have much more than that. I think it's definitely possible, but I don't think it's necessarily likely that we are.
Honestly, the insight that you gave us with your individual perspective was actually really interesting to me. And honestly, I think we're in a simulation. To frankly answer the question. Oh, whoops. So yeah, I think we're in a simulation, but I also not necessarily, all land on religion and faith like that. I'm in a little bit, but not all the way. I'm more into the fact that I think there had to be something to put us in this simulation that we call our reality. And honestly, I think I like to subscribe to the perspective that there's like I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's called the clockmaker or something like that. So I feel like there had to be a higher power, some sort of thing that we can't comprehend that basically built us, right? Built the clock and then got the cogs turned in and then just left us alone type of thing. I don't think we're actively being controlled by anything. So I think it's like just to summarize, it's like a 50-50 split. I think we did build our own simulation and I think we likely are in a simulation. But at the same time, I feel like there's something else that behind the scenes, I guess.
Personally, on this question, I would say it's a possibility, but I would probably lean a little bit more towards not. Just because after reading Chalmers stuff, like all the technology in this, personally, I'm absolutely terrified higher being putting us all in a simulation. Because we're gonna get to it eventually, but like the Plato's cave, like that freaked me out, where they just like sat there and did nothing. And then I think of a simulation. I just think it's like dehumanizing in a sense, but I totally respect it. So I'm leaning towards hopefully we're not.
We're not.
Yeah, I would say we're not living in a simulation. I also looked at Scientific American, so that was interesting. If we were living in a simulation, you would have to think about like who created it, and you would also have to consider if we have any control over our actions. So like, fate.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I think we all have our own fate, and I think what's so cool, like, again, in my personal belief, we may or may not be living in a simulation. I think I'm leaning more towards it. I don't know if I necessarily want to title it simulation, but yeah. So, I guess I would say that we, as the simulation, we do create our own fate. We do, and that's what this higher being of the simulation created for us. But on another note, if we were living in a simulation, are we real? I still think we are, because I still think that this world is real and that everything we've created and done and built over the years is real. And again, it has to do with our biggest senses of our body and how Caden said earlier, our brain is the biggest machine we can ever have. And I think that, if you use it, you would know that, yes, I am real. And how do we define real? Just like every other person on this planet, we bleed blood. We walk every day. We talk. We learn something new. All of us are in college right now. We're all doing something to learn. We're not just sitting in this fake simulation where we're just waiting for someone or something to just pop up so we can go and like touch it and see it. We're not waiting for something to have those five senses go and touch it. We actually are real. We can go do things on our own.
Yeah, if we are living in a simulation, someone has to be playing, or not playing, that might be the wrong word, being in the simulation, someone has to be the people in there, so I'd say that we are real.
And sorry, let's see. I think we are personally real because we all see each other as individuals, and I think that gives us enough framework and enough, as if everybody were to collectively believe something, and I'm pretty sure we all collectively believe that we are real to an extent. I think that's what makes us real. So
Yeah, if we're living in a simulation, are we real? Personally, for me, I think this just goes back to feeling. I would say, to some capacity, we are real, because if we have thoughts and feelings, like that's our reality. Um, I've said a lot about that, so I don't really know. I think kind of my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I agree. I said, yes, we're real. Even if the virtual reality you experience through a headset isn't real, we still are. And with that, our worlds are also still real.
Yeah, moving on to the idea when Chalmers talked about Plato's cave, do you think we can lead a good life in a virtual world or something similar to the idea of Plato's cave?
Um, I don't know if you, I mean, you probably could lead a good life, but I mean, I actually really don't know the answer to this question. This one has jammed me pretty well, but it's just, I think you could still live a good life. But the way Plato kind of describes life is that, I don't know, the way he says things a lot is he kind of refers to philosophy as like the therapy for the soul. And I'm pretty sure that's a quote by him. And so he kind of thinks that if you live a life based off of this philosophy about life, like life in philosophy, you will live a good life in the best possible way. But a lot of people don't practice philosophy, and a lot of people haven't even taken this course, so they don't see things in. I know we're just barely in the beginning of the semester here, but I think we have learned a good chunk, and maybe we see the world just a little bit different than how we did before we entered the course. And to our viewers who may be seeing this, they might not know, they might not see things the way we see it, and so we might think now that we're living in this virtual reality, or we're living in a simulation, or just the open mind of philosophy could lead to a better life. But people who are not taking this course or haven't really introduced their whole life to philosophy, I still think they can live a good life. It might not be, it might be just a kind of a blunt one, because I think we include philosophy in our daily lives, even if it's not a serious issue. But I think you can lead a good life with the Plato's cave allegory.
Yeah, as long as what you're experiencing and you feel like you're leading a fulfilling life, as long as you're personally satisfied from it, I think you definitely can lead a good life in a virtual world.
I mean, if you, yeah, going off what Kaden said, that was actually that was really nicely said. I think whatever confines you're in, whatever virtual world, whatever rules you live by, or whatever rules are set by the environment around you, I think there's always the potential to lead a good life within that world, or whatever world you're placed in.
Yeah, touching on the second part of the question, Plato's cave, can we lead a good life? I would say maybe not, just because they're only watching shadows. But I would say in can be infinite and so many different possibilities and various versions of yourself. So I would hope someone could end up living at least one good life. So a little more optimistic, hopefully, that this chance.
Yeah, I said, like, in the perspective as the reader of the allegory, it seemed like a terrible life, but they were actually enjoying it. Like, the whole ignorance is bliss thing.
Yeah, fully understandable. Not for me, though. Not my cup of tea.
All right, and just to throw in a couple lightning round, a couple questions. Do you guys think that virtual worlds are as good or even better than ordinary reality?
Yeah, I would think so. This is right here. What we're living is ordinary reality, according to us. I mean, I'm sure maybe you guys have a different opinion, but I think that this is the ordinary reality, the one that we're speaking in currently. And we can create our own virtual world. See, in my virtual world, there would be no hate, there would be no war, there would be no starvation, no hunger, right? So, of course, virtual worlds can be better. I'm not saying that virtual worlds can't have any of those bad things, but I think the more time that we spend in our own heads thinking about these virtual worlds, and that goes to the whole root of philosophy, is to dig deep in your mind and to dig out whatever ideas you were really thinking. And I think that virtual worlds, whatever we create as a virtual world together as the whole world, or together just as these 5 group members here, I think that our virtual world could be so much better than the one we're already living in, because we've lived in this reality and we know what mistakes maybe to make and not make. And so in our own virtual world, in our head, or our maybe subconscious or conscious, we can make it better. And I think that that's like a really good point.
Yeah, I think that was well said. There's a lot of problems with the current world and the current reality, so there's definitely if virtual realities are able to be made artificially and with a person's design, whether that be, I don't know, whatever company made the Matrix, or if you're religious, your idea of a higher power, they definitely can be better than ordinary reality.
Um, yeah, honestly, honestly, I think this question is really cool because in a virtual world, I feel like there can be more crazier things that can happen if, especially if we were to create our own virtual world. I feel like easily beats ordinary reality. But I think there's a certain part of reality that has to stay fundamental. Like what Nina said, like how she would implement no war, no hunger and starvation and stuff like that. I feel like all that stuff is necessary in order to make a reality in a certain sense. Because in a world like that, I think of this. I think of the world from this old book. I don't know if you guys have read it. It's called The Giver. You guys probably have read the book,
No,
maybe.
I've read that. It's a good book.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in that world, I'm pretty sure if my mind serves me right, I'm pretty sure that world had like none of those things, like no, I guess I don't know, quote unquote bad things or something like that. And so I think even virtual worlds could be better than our ordinary reality in a sense, but I feel like there's a there's a certain thing that we have to. I can't really put my tongue on it. There's a certain type of I don't know danger or some type of consequence that every reality, no matter what it is, has. Yeah, there's some sense of danger that has to be in it.
Yeah, I would say it depends on how that virtual world is set up. Personally, I'm following the answer I gave for like the last one. If virtual worlds are real, then there are infinite possible ones available. Since there's like a infinite amount, I would remain hopeful that some are as good as the one we're in, even though, but hopefully a lot that are much better. Because personally, like obviously, like the hunger, the starvation, the homelessness, for me, it's like also racism, phobia. I just say yes, that some are better than ordinary reality, and I remain very hopeful that.
Yeah. I said virtual worlds can definitely be better than ordinary reality because you can create any kind of virtual world that you want. You can create a world where you're like super rich and successful.
That's a good point. Guys, I think we've reached our end, but this was a really great podcast. I really loved you guys' ideas. You guys did an awesome job. I loved all of you guys' points. To our audience, I hope this really helps you with trying to get into a philosophy class. I mean, I think we all encourage you to just to become a more open-minded person and quite possibly a better person in the world. But again, I am Nina.
I'm Caden.
I'm Casey.
Yeah.
I'm Izzy.
All right. Thank you, guys.